This recording is brought to you by Mr. Danes. I'm here to read to you the article. If you feel like you want to take a break and don't read and just listen and put your headphones in. If not, you're welcome to read for yourself. So, Labor Day is just around the corner, and most folks spend it with their families, taking it easy. However, the first Labor Day was very different. Workers marched in the streets to advocate for things like an 8-hour workday, fair wages, and compensation if they were hurt at work. It was also a day to celebrate social and economic achievements of workers. The fight for fair treatment for laborers in the United States over 100 years ago and continues today in places that you may not even realize. So we're going to skip down to this article. So these two articles will help you out for the assignment today. There's Alex Rodriguez, New York Yankees superstar. So New York Yankees third baseman A-Rod was suspended from baseball as a punishment for using performance-enhancing drugs, other known as steroids. In 2009, Rodriguez admitted to using drugs in the early 2000s, but Major League Baseball says he continued to use that after that point and lied about it. His suspension was just one of many, as Major League Baseball also ejected 12 other players in the biggest single-day doping bust in the league's history. However, A-Rod's fame and the severity of his punishment make his case stand out. He will be suspended from the league for the rest of the season and all of next. A-Rod has said that he thinks the suspension might be the work of those who would benefit from him not ever stepping back on the field. He was alluding to his team, the Yankees, who have reportedly tried to void the $100 million plus left on his 10-year, $275 million contract. However, as Rodriguez appeals the suspension, he will be allowed to play and be paid the $173,000 per game he earns. All right. So, union influence. Rodriguez has received a far harsher penalty than other players and stands to lose $100 million. What the players' union can do is help him appeal a suspension and negotiate a fair punishment. Second article. Why it might be hard to get a burger today. So if you want to hit pause and answer the questions about Major League Baseball, do that now. I'm going to go ahead and read the burger union of today. Fast food workers across the U.S. are striking as part of a larger campaign to demand higher wages for hourly jobs. Employees at popular food chains in 50 cities, including McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King, are expected to be joined by workers at stores owned by retail giants Macy's, Sears, and Dollar Tree. The strikers are demanding that the federal minimum wage, the number that the government has decided is the lowest hourly wage allowed, be raised from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour. So a little bit more than half. The change would more than double annual earnings to about $31,000 a year for a full-time employee. Many fast food workers are paid minimum wage, and many more are not employed full-time. While the president and some in Congress are calling for a minimum wage hike, their proposals could seek a smaller increase to $9 an hour. Strikers also seeking the right to form unions and negotiate directly with their employees for higher wages. In a report from the AP, 20-year-old Shaniqua Davis describes what it is like living on minimum wage and trying to raise her 1-year-old daughter. Davis has had a job at the nearby McDonald's making $7.25 an hour. Her schedule varies, but she never gets close to 40 hours a week. 40? Never. They refuse to let you get to that many hours. Davis said her weekly paycheck is $150 or much lower. Minimum wage fails to keep up with inflation. The so-called living wage movement seeks to require employees to pay workers enough so that a person in a family can afford decent housing, food, and transportation. The minimum wage has failed to keep pace with inflation and higher living costs over the years, meaning that minimum wage workers are now having to do much more with less money. The minimum wage is now about more than 40% below the federal poverty line, writes Paul Solomon, financial news reporter for the PBS NewsHour. The numbers remind me of the old line in poker, read 'em and weep. Below you can see a chart from Oregon State University history of the federal minimum wage, where the blue dots represent the dollar amount of the day, and the red dots represent what the number means in today's dollars. In part as a result of demands from the civil rights movement, minimum wage in the late 1960s was the equivalent of about $10 per hour, but fell dramatically through the 80s. The last hike to federal minimum wage was in 2009, although some states have instituted higher minimum wages on their own. Washington State has the highest at $9.19 an hour. Union influence. If workers are allowed to form a union, the employers will legally have to make a contract that both the management and the workers agree upon. The agreement could include things like health care benefits, a wage increase, and fair working hours. Workers should have a better chance at achieving their labor goals with the representation of a union.